Pat, you've had a bit of time to take in Offaly getting relegated down to the Christie Ring. Why has it happened?
Well, I think it's been more than 20 years of slippage, which has brought Offaly to this point. Like even when Offaly were winning All Irelands in the 90s and hugely competitive at senior level, Kilkenny won 10 Leinster minor championships in the 90s in a row. Even probably the greatest, well, not probably, without doubt, the greatest day that I had in Croke Park as a supporter of Offaly would have been the 1995 Leinster final, when Offaly beat Kilkenny by 11 points. The curtain raiser that day, I think Offaly lost by 16 points to Kilkenny in the minor final. Yeah, so even that was in the back of my mind that day, even going home, as elated as I was, and that pattern continued for the year. Like, I think Dublin beat Offaly at minor level in 97 after a replay, managed by an Offaly man, Lee Cleary actually. And Offaly, there was a bit of a spike in 2000 when Offaly won the minor and under 21 Leinster titles, and since that, that was just a bit of a spike, and it's been downward since that. Haven't beaten one of Wexford, Kilkenny or Dublin at minor level since 2005. I don't think they've beaten the Lee McCarthy County at minor or under 21 since that's leaving Carlow since 2008, I think. They've lost regularly to Westmeath and Carlow and now Kildare on minor level. And
they swapped positions with Meath, who've gone up to Joe McDonagh. I mean, surely that kind of rams home that message that Offaly. Do you think it'll get worse now? Because if I was an Offaly player who was competing at Liam McCarthy level, then Joe McDonagh level, thinking we'll probably go back up, the likes of Joe Bergin, the likes of Shane Dooley. Yeah. Could you see experienced players walking away and some of the better players?
I could, yeah. It's happened regularly over the last number of years, so why would it stop now when you get into the Christie Ring? So I have a big fear about that.
How many of the top 30 hurlers in Offaly are actually even lining out for the county now?
Well, it's very hard to. It's a bit of a moot point. Has Kevin Martin and Joachim Kelly after him this year had every hurler he would want in there this year? No. But I think the thing is, while there are hurlers out in the club scene that will improve it, it's not like there's a Johnny Dooley or a John Troy or a Brian Whelan out in the club scene ripping it up. That would make a massive difference to the senior team. So that can be a little bit overplayed. I would say last year Kevin Martin in 2018, maybe with the exception of James Dempsey, he was an obvious one. The goalkeeper he stood down after 2017. But then Owen Cal came in and he's really top class. He's probably possibly the only Offaly player who would contend for a spot in every single team and possibly get his place with every team that's above Offaly. So I'd struggle to put a number on how many players are outside. Should be inside, maybe 10 or 12, but I'm not sure if all of those lads would come in and get on the team and make a monumental difference either. It would definitely raise the standard, raise the standard of training games and all that sort of thing, but it wouldn't be the difference between Offaly being where they are now and being competitive in the Leinster Championship.
What about like the last game of the Leinster Championship run last year, if I remember correctly, was Wexford, was it?
No, Dublin was the last game for Offaly.
Okay, so it went down to 12 men against Wexford last year. In some of the games this year, and I might even miss one, but Antrim in a good position in that game. They had 14 men. Conor Mann gets sent off for a shoulder to the head. In a good position against Kerry, red card, lose the game again. I mean, what do you put that down to? Because it seems to be consistent disciplinary issues, and some of it's for dirty strokes and late hits.
Absolutely, yeah. It's just crept in because, again, I know the game is different in the 90s, but I remember Offaly lost Kilkenny in 1993. Roy Mannion got sent off, which had a huge impact on that game. Offaly never had a man sent off in Championship hurling again until 1999.
Wow. When
Dai Regan decked Andy Comfort in the Leinster final here. And it's become an epidemic over the last few years. And I remember having a conversation with you before about this, where you suggested that it might be just
unfit and frustration.
A manifestation of the fact that they're so off the pace that they just lash out, and perhaps there is a bit of that. But certainly in the Kerry game, it couldn't have been that because it was after 7 minutes of the match. Offaly doing really well, 4 points up. So it's just in discipline. It's something that would have been associated with Offaly hurling going way back, 70s, 60s, 50s. And personally, I think if Offaly had 15 men, I think they would have beaten Kerry. Just the way the game just how crucial the extra man was for Kerry after that. In fact, they only won the game by 2 points, albeit they were more than 2 points to the other team. I think Offaly would have found a way to win that game with parity in terms of men on the field. So it's, there's a man sent off against Antrim, man sent off towards the end against Westmeath, even though it didn't make any difference to the outcome. But then he was suspended for the Antrim game. So it is an epidemic, and I think it has to be top of whoever the new manager's list. That just has to be stamped out, because they'll argue beating the Joe McDonagh Cup.
Yes, you're thrown. Yeah. So you mentioned Daithí Regan there. Daithí Regan, as far as I know, kind of rolled back on his tweets from last week when he was doing coverage of the game on Midlands Radio. He obviously was very frustrated. A couple of players were brought in from the cold by Joachim Kelly. A couple of guys that had never had a start before. A couple of guys that hadn't been there under Kevin Martin up until a month beforehand. And then the tweets came out when he told the management to cop on and single them out and what have you. How unhelpful do you think that was? And I know Daithí's rolled back on it now.
Yeah, well, it's a bit late to roll back on it now. It was. I don't have a problem with him as a former player raising those issues, and the interim management do have a lot to answer for. I think the timing of it was. It couldn't have been worse. Even if he done it on Saturday morning.
He threw everyone under the bus there, really.
Yeah, but yeah.
Because you imagine you're a player, you're just getting tweets. What's going on? What's going on about this?
What's this all about? And like, I've said this a number of times, that game was the biggest game in Offaly hurling history, and it didn't require a former player to drop a nuclear bomb the morning before the biggest game in Offaly hurling history, bigger than any All-Ireland final that Offaly ever played. And he could have done it Saturday evening, Sunday morning after the game, and that would have been fine. Because there were issues raised, valid issues raised.
Yeah, that's the thing. They were legitimate,
and there were issues beyond that as well. Like he didn't bring up the Joe Bergin situation, which I cannot get my head around, and I'd love to hear an explanation as to why his non-selection was justified and whose interest was in it.
There are rumours flying around. What's your understanding of how that ended up happening? Because he's clearly one of Offaly's best players, and he has over 20 championship goals, most of them from play. He's a crucial player. You don't not start him. And when you even think Conor Mahon was suspended as well, so there was a big target man missing.
Yeah. I was at the match, and Joe Bergin was introduced after 20 minutes, and I tweeted at the time it was bananas that he didn't start, and it was.
So what happened?
I'm going on hearsay. I haven't spoken to either party, but there seems to have been a fallout arising from the Antrim game, and it was dealt with, from what I can see, in a sort of Saipan style, in front of everybody.
Kangaroo court type affair.
Something along those lines, possibly. Now it's look, I wasn't there. I've heard about what happened second hand. I haven't heard from either from the main protagonists, but I think his non-selection was an exceptionally thin-skinned decision, and it arguably cost Offaly that game as well. Like, it was, I just cannot get my head around it, because he was Offaly's best player in the matches I saw against Westmeath and against Antrim, and I would ask the question to the management. Was the decision of not to pick Joe Bergin in the best interests of Offaly hurling? And I can't for the life of me see how it was. And just because the interim manager came in difficult circumstances, they deserve credit for that. But that doesn't give them license to basically make bags of it, which they did with that particular decision, without a shadow of a doubt.
And do you think the last few management teams in general, like Kevin Martin now and Kevin Martin before and Joachim Kelly, have they contributed overall to where things have gone, or was it going this way anyway?
I suppose they can't wash their hands of it. Kevin Martin was there for a year and a half. They got almost 2 full seasons. It started extremely well for him. That game here against Dublin, and even the game against Kilkenny, were extremely competitive in the league quarter final. And I think things, and they started the championship fairly competitive as well. And I think after they got hammered by Wexford, it's well known in Offaly that there was a kind of breach of discipline, and that bled into the Dublin game, which I think possibly bled into the subsequent 2019 season, and it's just been a downward spiral. I think Offaly have lost 18 games out of 19 in all competitions, including World Cup, this year. It was Offaly hurling was in a downward spiral anyway over the last 20 years. There have been spikes along the way. There was a couple of them last year under Kevin, and then the rot set in again. Is Kevin blameless in the whole thing? No, and I'd say he'd be the first person to admit that himself. And the same with the interim management.
Is there anything you'd like to see done that would definitely improve the future of Offaly hurling?
Yeah, I'd like to see change in key personnel at county board level. I've continually said that Tommy Byrne, I don't think has the vision or the ambition to drive Offaly hurling back up to where it needs to be. Now he's only one person, but he is in a pivotal position. There are other people around him who have been there up to 30 years in some instances. That's not healthy, no matter how efficient they are. Now against that, there has been a certain amount of turnover in the county board over the last couple of years, and people in the more peripheral roles. There's some very capable people in those jobs, and that's obviously to be welcomed. But there needs to be more fresh younger blood in the pivotal positions, like obviously starting with chairman. I think the next managerial appointment is hugely important. I actually think, in a bizarre sort of way, if you're an aspiring inter-county manager, it's actually probably not I think it's a more attractive job to take on now, perhaps, than it might have been 2 years ago. Because this time 2 years ago, the new championship structure was coming in, and Offaly were always going to be relegated from the McDonagh Cup. And now they're in a position where I think if they do things right next year, they should win the Christy Ring, and they have potential to come up again the next year.
While everyone understands you're building from scratch.
Yeah. And look, there is an under-20 team there that this year has shown a bit of potential. I'm told by people who are better informed with the under-8 structure than I am that the next, say, like this year's minor results with Kildare was very disappointing, albeit they were very competitive against Wexford and could have beaten them. But I'm informed that the batch coming behind them is a step up on what Offaly have been producing at minor level for a long number of years. So hopefully that comes to fruition. But I'd like them to make an ambitious appointments, or as ambitious as is possible for the county operating at Christy Ring level as manager. Like, you look what Eddie Brown has done with Leash, albeit they still have a season-defining game to play. But I think someone like that, who's an up-and-coming manager, who maybe wants to go on and manage his own county, Tipperary, Kilkenny, etc. in years to come, would be a good appointment for Offaly.
And you mentioned Eddie Brennan and the Joe McDonagh final against Westmeath. You'd have seen a bit of the Joe McDonagh through following Offaly this year as well. If you were to call that game, what way would you be looking?
I think it'd be extremely tight. There's pressure on Westmeath because they got to the final last year and didn't win it. And they would have been seen as probably ahead of Carlow generally over the last few years, and Carlow just nipped in ahead of them last year.
And they've been promoted to Division 1 in the hurling league.
I was really impressed by them against Offaly, and even if the Offaly performance that day was very poor, but even if Offaly had been at the top of their game, I don't think they would have won that game because Westmeath were very impressive. So I was very surprised to see them lose to Kerry the following week. I presume a bit of complacency crept in, but then again I was impressed by Antrim in Tullamore, and then they had everything to play for in Dunleary the following week, and Westmeath made very light work with them. I'd give maybe Leash a very hesitant vote, but it won't be a shock either way. And with the system, if this goes to a draw, I'm not sure does it go to extra time and potentially penalties, because there's a preliminary quarter final the following week. You wouldn't rule that out.
Yeah, and you'd have to say about Eddie Brennan, considering the world of flux he came into with Leash, so he takes over the job and everyone is expecting that he'll do okay with that. He has a bit of experience with Kilkenny under 21s. First thing that happens is Ross King gets his teeth knocked out by a Camross player. Yeah. There's a bit of social media brouhaha with it as well. Yeah. So it's a terrible situation for Eddie. Ross King doesn't commit it at the start, and understandably so. he does get him back in, and they're in the Joe McDonagh final. So he's done very well in light of what had happened.
Yeah, very toxic situation to inherit, and he was even in a situation where he was playing against Portlaoise for his own club in the Leinster Club Championship before he got his teeth into the Laois job. Yeah, so this club rivalries has held Laois back for a hell of a long time. Compared to, again, Offaly, when Offaly were successful. Offaly would have had a very toxic club environment at times over the 70s, and Jim Healy managed to come in and eliminate that and get a good spirit there when Offaly became successful in the 80s. So I suppose Eddie would hope he's having a similar effect there. But you wouldn't hold your breath too long. Let's see how the club scene plays out there in the autumn in Laois. And again, Eddie would have, when he took the job, complained about the fact that he just couldn't understand how the best players wouldn't come in. And you'd wonder will it change now if they win this competition and go up. But there's also a bit of a cautionary tale there for this football tier structure which has been proposed in that there's an assumption that if teams are in a competition they can win, the best players will commit. But we've seen in Offaly at least that clearly isn't the case.
And if you were to the Leinster and Munster final coming down the tracks, tip against Limerick, how do you see that going?
I think it's nicely set up for Limerick. I was at the game in Thurles last Sunday, and it was just had all the feel of a phony war. Tipperary more or less put their best foot forward.
And paid the price with injuries.
Yeah. Well, maybe they would have got injured anyway, but he was never going to change the full 15. But they're weakened by that, and Bonner in particular is a huge loss because he's not.
There's no one else like him.
There's no one. He's a very unique player. There isn't a like for like replacement. Carl Barrett is an outstanding defender. If he's going to be, looks like he's going to be out. And then you have Limerick with these players coming back in. Who were rested or not risked last Sunday, and they're playing at home. And psychologically having lost to a team. It's always a good place to be when you'd like to play them. So I would fancy Limerick.
Even though they've lost 2 games out of 4, which can't be ignored.
Yeah, I know. And if they were to lose again, I think that would be hugely damaging. And I think they'll be aware of that. I just think Limerick at their best, Tipperary at their best. I would still have Limerick ahead of Tip, and I just wonder. Tip have played really well in their first 3 games. Played reasonably well last Sunday. How long are they going to be able to maintain that? Are they going to be able to maintain it through the championship? I think probably not. Now maybe they might not need to. Maybe they'll be able to find a way to win when not playing particularly well. But I just think it's set up nicely for Limerick going back to the game.
Yeah, it kind of helps when you have a loss to identify where the issues are, because you just kind of plough on. If you keep winning, you're assuming there's not too much wrong. Wexford and Kilkenny then. Kilkenny had their loss against Galway, but they came through with it with the draw with Wexford, who are unbeaten themselves with just 1 win, and they're through. Yeah,
it's a long time since they actually met in the Leinster final where they're actually meeting as equals. Where it's genuinely 50-50 game. I know Wexford would have beat them in the semi-final in 2004, and around 3 points the year after, and even 2002 was only a 2-point game. But that was very much like Wexford coming in as plucky underdogs and hanging in there. Whereas now I think they're meeting them as equals, and it's hugely important I think for Wexford that they win silverware, especially in a game where it's not like they're facing the behemoths that Kilkenny were 10 years ago or less, and where expectations are lowered. I think they've got a great chance of winning this game, and I think it's very important that they do.
Do you think there's a big kind of sort of a general idea out there that, well, now that it's in Croke Park, it'll suit Kilkenny more, even though Wexford have some unbelievable athletes think Jimmy O'Keefe, Conor MacDonald, Lee Chin obviously, and then powerful runners like Rory O'Connor and even Jack O'Connor, who came on and was brilliant in the second half of that day. So there's no guarantee that this will necessarily suit Kilkenny. Yeah,
I don't really buy into that myself. The only thing you might say, Wexford have much experience of actually playing here in Croke Park. That's the only thing, but I wouldn't buy into the dimensions of the pitch or any of that thing suiting Wexford any more or less than it does Kilkenny. And if Wexford played here, they didn't play here last year, they played here 2 years ago. Before that, was it 2008 since they played here? Oh no, sorry, they played Dublin here.
Got hammered by 12 points.
So that's something of a factor, you would say, that just lack of experience playing big games here. But other than that, and I don't think that affects them greatly.
And if you were to call it?
I'd probably side with Kenny ever so slightly. I think there's more to come from. I don't think they're good enough, strong enough to win in Northern Ireland, but I just think that even against Galway, when they probably should have been well beaten by, I don't think a 7 or 8 point victory would flatter Galway that day, but they just have that incredible resilience. Like their level has dropped in terms of their quality of player across the field over the last few years, but their resilience.
The quality of competitors still there.
That hasn't diminished in the slightest, and that's why I'd be very slow to back against them in a 50-50 game. If they were playing some Munster opposition, I think they'd need a bit more than that. But I think it might just be enough to get them through. And if they're in if they get through in an All-Ireland semi-final, they wouldn't be the best team left in the competition at that stage, but they could be the most dangerous.